For this next one, end station, I want you to think about this. You've got projects, we know where the project begins. Maybe you were asked to, up to a certain point, do some of the template. Your typical section stops at a certain point. For today, so everyone will be successful, this is a line we drew for you, but that could be some CAD drafted edge of pavement or something like that on the project, right? There's a very specific moment in your design that you're like, no, it has to stop right there because maybe the designer or the drafter drew some curb and gutter and it's starting an urban section or something. So notice when I roll my mouse wheel, I zoom in and out on that window. I'd like you to look, and it's just between two intersections at the bottom of this roadway system. Notice we've got this one road here called Church Road. So it's above Church Road and it's below this ramp C and D intersection. There is a line we drew there, and you'll notice some verbiage. It says start urban template drop, end rural template drop. Now, let's be real, our projects don't just say stuff like that, right? But we're helping you out today. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit closer because I want you to see there's a line right in there. There's a magenta line there. As I move my mouse, I want you to notice AccuSnap. As I move my mouse near the end, AccuSnap grabs it. So I'm snapping to that limit. I may not know the station. I do know when I first started OpenRoads, I used to get frustrated because in Geopack, what's the exact station? It's station this, and I key all that in. Something might happen, so I usually write all those down, and I'd have to key it in because if it messed up. In OpenRoads, it was uncomfortable to say pick a graphic. I was like, that's inaccurate, that's not accurate. Well, no, actually it's just as accurate, right? That is that station. As I hover on there, notice the station readout on that heads-up dialog, it's dynamically updating against the geometry. So if that value is not a value I like, well then I gotta go talk to my CAD drafter because he drew something wrong. So, again, I don't need to be so weighed down by all of those little details. So I used to have a whole piece of paper writing all my station start and stops down. Don't need to do any of that anymore. So now, as I let the mouse kind of snap to it there, I'm going to go ahead and left click. And what that did was it established the end. So for that template, which is rural, I said start at the beginning, stop right there at that particular moment. And again, it may be because the drafter drew some curb and gutter and it becomes rural. The next prompt, you can see on my mouse, this heads up dialog as I wiggle it around there. So as I move this around, you can see that. The parameter for drop interval. This is important because if you're working in different state agencies, counties, things like that, and you're required to deliver cross sections at a certain interval, that's what this number really kind of means. So you want to have something that's divisible by what your deliverable will be. Now, it doesn't need to be the exact, like if your client says every 100 feet, we deliver a section, don't put 100 here, your model's going to look awful. We need to do something divisible, so I still want it to look good, but I also don't want you to do like 1 inch, because this isn't Pixar, guys. You're gonna crash this thing, and no contractor's that's a spoonful of dirt he doesn't care about. So, we need to find a sweet spot, pick something sensible. This does control the performance of your model. What this does, every one of those templates, with every line, every point, is being calculated in space, and repeated at this interval. And then from that, there's line strings and splines that flow through that. And those have more vertices. So your CPU is going to go through the roof and it's going to run slow for that reason alone. So think about this to control the speed. I like to think of it shifting gears at times. So if my client requires 100-foot sections, I'm going to use an interval maybe like 10. But also, if the project's really big, I might actually make it 50 just for a while and change it to 10 later when I'm at the very tail end. And I'll just give you one performance tip here. We did super elevation one time on a model that was set to 10 and applied the super elevation to quarter model. It took about 2.5 minutes. Then, this was V8i by the way. Then we actually did one where we changed it so it was 100 feet and applied the super elevation. It took like 8 seconds. Now, I did another test. The exact same thing. 100 foot, 8 seconds, but then switched the interval back to 10. And it only took like 10 more seconds. So my point is, to do 2 steps for me, I could compress the time from 2.5 minutes to 18 seconds to get my job done. An extra step, but I knew how to manipulate the computer to work for me. So just something to think about when you're working on these things. So, for our interval today, it's going to be 10. I'm going to key in the value 10. Notice as I type, that prompt starts to leach in the value that I input. So that interval is going to be a value of 10. And my main reason is maybe my client wants 50-foot sections. Well, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? 100-foot sections divisible. So